let's get right to it. When we're talking about VPNs, there's always that one big question hanging in the air. Is this amazing tool for security and privacy going to slow my internet to a crawl? Well, today we're going to find out. Okay, let's just tackle this head on. You're all set to stream a movie, jump into a game, or just browse the web safely. You click that connect button on your VPN, and suddenly it feels like you're trying to run through digital molasses. So what's the deal? Does a VPN really slam the brakes on your internet?
Look, the short answer is yeah. Yes, it does. A VPN will almost always slow down your connection at least a little bit. But, and this is a huge but, the story absolutely does not end there. The real key is understanding why it happens and by how much, because once you know that, you can start to take back control. To really wrap our heads around this, we first have to figure out what internet speed even means. You know, it's not just one single number on a speed test. It's actually a mix of 3 different, really important measurements. First up, we've got latency. You've probably heard this called ping, especially if you're a gamer. Think of it like reaction time. It's how long it takes for a tiny piece of data to go from your computer to a server and all the way back. For anything happening in real time, like a video call or an online game, low latency is everything. High latency is, well, it's lag. Next, there's bandwidth. Now, this is the big, flashy number your internet service provider loves to put on billboards. It's the maximum potential amount of data your connection can handle. A great way to think about it is like a highway. Bandwidth is how many lanes you've got. More lanes mean more data can theoretically get through at the same time. And that brings us to the third one, and honestly, the one that really matters to you and me, throughput. This is the actual amount of data that successfully gets where it's going. This is the real-world speed you see when that download progress bar is filling up. So if bandwidth is the number of lanes on the highway, throughput is how many cars are actually getting through the traffic. So now that we know what speed is, why does a VPN mess with all 3 of these things? Well, it really just boils down to 2 super simple ideas: a longer journey for your data and some extra baggage it's forced to carry. All right, reason number 1, the journey. Without a VPN, your data takes a pretty direct path to whatever website you're visiting. But the second you turn on a VPN, you're adding a mandatory detour. Your data now has to travel all the way from you to the VPN server first, and then it gets sent along to its final destination. That extra stop adds real physical distance to the trip. And what's wild is that we can actually measure this delay. Data flying through a fiber optic cable is incredibly fast. We're talking about 2/3 the speed of light. But even at that insane speed, distance is distance. A good rule of thumb is that you add about 1 millisecond of latency for every 100 kilometers of travel. So your total delay is the trip to the VPN server plus the trip from that server to the website. It all adds up. Okay, so that's the longer journey. The second reason for the slowdown is the extra baggage. And that baggage is encryption. The very thing that makes a VPN so secure, scrambling your data into unreadable code, also makes your data packets a little bit bigger. This is what we call encryption overhead. This is the perfect way to picture it. Think of a piece of your data as a letter. A VPN doesn't just mail that letter. It takes it, puts it inside a bigger, armored, locked envelope for maximum security. That extra protective packaging adds a little bit of size and weight to every single packet of data you sent, and that eats into your total throughput. Okay, so we've got a longer journey and extra baggage. That makes sense. But why is it that some VPNs feel super snappy while others feel like a total slog? Well, it turns out there are a few key variables that decide just how big that speed hit is going to be. Let's break them down. So first off, server location is huge. The closer that server is to you, the shorter the journey, the lower the latency. Simple. Then you've got server load. If 1,000 people are crammed onto one server, it's going to be a traffic jam. Encryption strength can also play a role, but honestly, the biggest one, the real game changer that can make a massive difference, is the VPN protocol. And when we talk about fast, modern protocols, there's one name you have to know: WireGuard. And hey, don't just take my word for it. This is a quote from Linus Torvalds. You know, the guy who created the Linux operating system. He called WireGuard a work of art compared to the older protocols. That is some seriously high praise. So let's put them head to head. Here's a quick comparison of WireGuard and OpenVPN, which has been the reliable standard for years. You can see right away WireGuard wins on performance, lower latency, higher throughput. But just look at that last row, the size of the code. That right there is the secret sauce. This chart just makes it so clear. In a direct matchup, WireGuard delivered about 12% more actual data throughput. Now, 12% might not sound like a ton, but you can absolutely feel that difference when you're downloading a big file or trying to stream in 4K without buffering. And this is why. It's just mind-blowing. WireGuard gets its speed from being incredibly simple and elegant. It's got about 4,000 lines of code. OpenVPN has over 500,000. This tiny footprint means WireGuard is way more efficient, it's easier on your battery, and as a bonus, it's way easier to check for security bugs. So, with all this new info, how do you actually fight back against VPN lag? The great news is you are not powerless here. There are absolutely things you can do right now to get the best possible speeds out of your VPN connection. Here are 4 super simple steps. 1. Pick a server that's physically closer to you. Less distance, less lag. 2. If your VPN app shows you how busy a server is, pick one that isn't crowded. 3, and this is probably the most important one, dig into your VPN settings and switch the protocol to WireGuard. And finally, number 4, whenever you can, plug in an Ethernet cable. A wired connection is always going to be more stable than Wi-Fi. All right, get ready for a pretty wild twist. We've spent all this time talking about how VPNs slow you down. It's a fact of life. But what if I told you there's one very specific, very weird situation where using a VPN can actually make your internet faster? Yeah, I know, it sounds completely backwards, right? How on earth can adding an extra stop and extra encryption baggage possibly result in a speed boost? It doesn't seem to make any sense, but trust me, it can happen. Let me show you how. And the answer is a surprising yes, but only if your internet service provider is throttling you. Throttling is when your ISP deliberately slows down certain types of internet traffic, usually the stuff that uses a lot of data, like streaming Netflix or downloading huge files, to manage congestion on their network. So here's where the VPN becomes your secret weapon. Your ISP can only slow down what it can see. When you fire up your VPN, all of your data gets wrapped in that armored envelope of encryption. Your ISP can see that you're using a VPN, sure, but it has no idea what you're doing. It can't tell if you're streaming a 4K movie or just checking your email. And if it can't see your traffic, it can't single it out to slow it down. You literally bypass their artificial bottleneck. So when you get right down to it, the question isn't really, does a VPN slow me down? The real question is, how much speed am I willing to trade for the incredible privacy and security a VPN gives me? And now, by understanding things like server location and VPN protocols, you have the power to fine-tune that trade-off so it works perfectly for you. Thanks so much for watching.